My greedy stepfather insists I pay rent now that I'm 18, unaware that I secretly inherited the house from my late father. I'm Alex, 18, and I just graduated high school last month. My mom passed away when I was 10, and my dad remarried Jenny when I was 12. Jenny seemed nice at first, but it became clear pretty quickly that she was more interested in my dad's money than in being a stepmother. My dad worked hard as a successful real estate developer, and we lived comfortably in a beautiful house in a nice neighborhood. Everything changed 2 years ago when my dad was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. He fought hard, but he passed away just before my 16th birthday. I was devastated, but I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Enter my stepfather, Rick. He's Jenny's brother, and he moved in with us shortly after Dad died, supposedly to help out. In reality, he's a leech who hasn't worked a day in his life. He spends his days drinking beer, watching TV, and barking orders at Jenny and me. Now, here's where things get interesting. A few days after the funeral, I received a letter from my dad's lawyer. It turns out that my dad, being the smart man he was, had set up a trust for me. The biggest shock? He left me the house. That's right, the very house we're all living in. The letter explained that the trust would manage the property until I turned 18, at which point ownership would transfer to me. I was stunned. I didn't know what to do with this information, so I decided to keep it to myself. I figured I'd wait until I turned 18 and then figure out my next steps. Fast forward to last week. I had my 18th birthday, and while Jenny made a half-hearted attempt at a celebration, Rick was his usual charming self. He cornered me after dinner and dropped this bomb. Listen up, kid. You're 18 now, which means you're an adult. Adults pay their way. Starting next month, you're gonna be paying rent. $800 a month, and don't even think about arguing. I was speechless. The audacity of this man to demand rent from me in my own house. But I bit my tongue. I knew I had to play this smart. I'll need some time to figure things out, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Can we discuss this in a couple of weeks? Rick narrowed his eyes. 2 weeks. Then I want to see some cash. I nodded and retreated to my room, my mind racing. I knew I had to act, but I wasn't sure how. Should I confront them with the truth? Seek legal advice? Try to negotiate? I'm overwhelmed and could really use some guidance. So, Reddit, what should I do? How do I handle this situation without blowing up my entire life? Edit 1. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up like it has. Thank you all for your advice and support. I've read through all the comments, there are so many, and I wanted to provide some updates and answer some common questions. First, many of you have suggested I speak with a lawyer immediately. You're right, and I've already reached out to the lawyer who sent me the original letter about the trust. I have an appointment to see him tomorrow morning. Second, a lot of you have asked about my relationship with Jenny. It's complicated. She's not outright abusive, but she's definitely neglectful. She seems to just go along with whatever Rick says. I think she's afraid of him, to be honest. Third, regarding my plans for the future, I was planning to attend community college in the fall while working part-time. Now, I'm not so sure. I might need to reevaluate everything. I'll update again after I meet with the lawyer. Thanks again for all your support. Edit 2. I met with the lawyer this morning, and boy, do I have an update for you all. Buckle up, because things just got even more complicated. So, I met with Mr. Thompson, my dad's lawyer, this morning. He was incredibly helpful and shed light on a lot of things I didn't know. Here's what I learned. 1. The house is indeed mine, free and clear. There's no mortgage, and all property taxes have been paid through the end of the year. 2. The trust my dad set up doesn't just include the house. There's also a significant amount of money set aside for my education and living expenses. I nearly fell out of my chair when Mr. Thompson told me the amount. 3. Here's the kicker, my dad left Jenny a modest sum of money, but it came with conditions. She was supposed to use it to take care of me until I turned 18. If she failed to do so, the money would revert to my trust. Mr. Thompson believes that Jenny's neglect and Rick's attempt to charge me rent could be grounds for her to lose that money. 4. The most shocking revelation? There was a clause in my dad's will that I never knew about. If Jenny remarried within 5 years of his death, she would forfeit any claim to the house or additional financial support. Guess what? Jenny and Rick got married 6 months ago in a quickie Vegas ceremony. They kept it quiet, but Mr. Thompson found out through his connections. I left the lawyer's office with my head spinning. I have options, but I'm not sure which path to take. Mr. Thompson advised me to think carefully about my next move. He suggested a few possibilities. A. Confront Jenny and Rick with all this information and ask them to leave immediately. B. Give them a grace period to find new accommodations, but start charging them rent in the meantime. C. Negotiate a deal where they can stay for a reduced rent, provided they treat me with respect and Rick gets a job. D. Keep quiet for now, gather more evidence of their mistreatment, and then take legal action to evict them and potentially recover the money Jenny was supposed to use for my care. I'm leaning towards option D, but I'm worried about how tense things might get if I continue living with them while gathering evidence. Plus, there's a part of me that just wants to scream the truth at Rick the next time he demands rent. On top of all this, I'm struggling with some serious emotions. I'm angry at Jenny for betraying my dad's trust. I'm furious at Rick for being such a jerk. But I'm also sad and confused. Despite everything, Jenny is the closest thing I have to a mother, and the thought of cutting her out of my life completely is painful. I could really use some advice on how to handle this emotionally, as well as practically. How do I balance standing up for myself with potentially destroying the only family I have left? Edit 3. Thank you all again for your support and advice. Your comments have given me a lot to think about. I've decided to take a few days to process everything before making any big decisions. In the meantime, I'm going to start quietly documenting Rick and Jenny's behavior. I've also reached out to my best friend, Sam, and asked if I could crash at his place for a few days if things get too tense at home. I'll update again once I've made a decision or if anything significant happens. Wish me luck. Edit 4. It's been a week since my last update, and a lot has happened. I decided to go with a modified version of option D, but things didn't exactly go according to plan. I spent the week carefully documenting every interaction with Rick and Jenny. I set up a hidden camera in my room, don't worry, it's legal in my state as long as it's in my private space, and recorded Rick's aggressive behavior and Jenny's indifference. The breaking point came 3 days ago. Rick barged into my room, clearly drunk, demanding the rent money. I calmly told him I was still figuring things out. He didn't like that answer. He got in my face, jabbing his finger at my chest, and slurred, "Listen here, you ungrateful little shit. This is my house, and you'll do as I say. If you don't have the rent by tomorrow, you're out on your ass." I lost it. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Actually, Rick," I said, my voice shaking with anger, "this is my house. My dad left it to me. You have no right to demand anything from me." The look on his face was priceless. He stumbled backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then he lunged at me. Thankfully, I managed to dodge him, and he crashed into my desk. The commotion brought Jenny running. When she saw Rick on the floor and me backed into a corner, she finally seemed to snap out of her passive state. "What the hell is going on here?" she demanded. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. I told them about the trust, the house, the conditions of Jenny's inheritance, and their secret marriage. Jenny went pale, while Rick's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "You're lying," he sputtered. "You're just a kid. You can't own this house." I pulled out my phone and played back the recording of his earlier threat. "I have proof of everything," I said. "I've spoken to a lawyer. You have no legal right to be here, let alone charge me rent." What followed was chaos. Rick started yelling and throwing things. Jenny burst into tears. I retreated to Sam's house for the night, but not before telling them they had 30 days to vacate the premises. The next morning, I returned with Mr. Thompson. We served Rick and Jenny with formal eviction notices. Mr. Thompson also informed Jenny that due to her neglect and Rick's behavior, she would be forfeiting the money my dad had left her. It's been a whirlwind since then. Rick and Jenny are frantically packing, alternating between begging me to reconsider and hurling insults. I'm standing firm, but it's not easy. Despite everything, seeing Jenny cry still tugs at my heartstrings. Mr. Thompson is helping me navigate the legal aspects of assuming ownership of the house and accessing my trust fund. I've decided to take a gap year before college to sort everything out and decide what I want to do next. I know this isn't the end of the drama. Rick has been making vague threats, and I'm worried he might try something stupid. I've installed a security system and made sure all the neighbors know the situation. As for Jenny, part of me hopes that once she's away from Rick's influence, she might reach out and try to make amends. I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive her, but I'm not closing that door completely. For now, I'm focusing on reclaiming my space and my life. It's overwhelming to suddenly be responsible for a house and a substantial trust fund, but I'm determined to honor my dad's memory by making smart decisions. Thank you all for your support throughout this crazy journey. I couldn't have done it without your advice and encouragement. I'll post another update once Rick and Jenny are gone and I've had a chance to settle in. Final update, 6 months later. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my last update, and a lot has happened. I thought I'd check in and let you all know how things have turned out. Grab a cup of coffee, because this is going to be a long one. First, the immediate aftermath of the eviction. Rick and Jenny did move out within the 30-day period, but not without causing more drama. Rick tried to take a bunch of furniture and electronics that my dad had bought, claiming they were gifts to him and Jenny. Thankfully, Mr. Thompson had advised me to document everything in the house, so we were able to prove most of it belonged to the estate. We did let them take some smaller items just to avoid more conflict. The day they left was surreal. Jenny was in tears, alternating between apologizing and guilt-tripping me. Rick, on the other hand, was seething with anger. As they drove away, he yelled out the car window, "You'll regret this, you little bastard." It was like a scene from a bad movie. For the first few weeks after they left, I was constantly on edge. Every car that drove by too slowly, every unexpected noise at night had me jumping. I installed security cameras around the property and made sure all the locks were changed. It took a while, but eventually, I started to feel safe in my own home again. Now, on to the bigger changes in my life. 1. The house. Living alone in this big house was weird at first. It felt empty and too quiet. I've since repainted and rearranged some rooms to make it feel more like my own space. I turned one of the spare bedrooms into a home gym and another into a study/library. I also discovered that maintaining a house is a lot of work. I've had to learn about things like HVAC maintenance, lawn care, and even how to unclog a drain. YouTube has been my best friend for all these new homeowner tasks. 2. Finances. Managing the trust fund has been a huge learning experience. Mr. Thompson connected me with a financial advisor who's been teaching me about investing, budgeting, and long-term financial planning. It's overwhelming at times, but I'm determined to be responsible with this inheritance. I've set up a budget for house maintenance, put aside money for college, and even started a small investment portfolio. The advisor suggested I rent out a portion of the house to generate some income, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. Maybe in the future. 3. Education and career. Remember how I said I was taking a gap year? Well, I've used this time to really think about what I want to do with my life. I've taken some online courses in various subjects to explore my interests. I've discovered a passion for environmental science and sustainable urban planning. It's fascinating to learn about how cities can be designed to be more eco-friendly and livable. I've decided to apply to college for next fall. I'm looking at programs that combine environmental science with urban studies. Who knows, maybe one day I'll be designing green spaces in cities or consulting on sustainable housing developments. 4. Personal growth. Living alone and dealing with all this adulting has forced me to grow up fast. I've become more confident in my decision-making and more assertive in standing up for myself. I've also had to learn to cook, beyond just microwaving frozen dinners, do laundry properly, and manage my time effectively. I've been seeing a therapist to work through the emotional fallout from everything that happened. It's been helpful in processing my feelings about my dad's death, Jenny's betrayal, and the sudden responsibilities thrust upon me. 5. Relationships. This whole experience has really shown me who my true friends are. Sam, the friend who let me crash at his place during the eviction drama, has been an absolute rock. He and a few other close friends have become like family to me. I've also started dating someone, a girl named Zoe who I met in one of my online classes. She's smart, funny, and incredibly supportive. Taking things slow, but it's nice to have someone special in my life. 6. Jenny and Rick. You're probably wondering what happened with them. Well, it's complicated. About 2 months after they left, Jenny reached out to me. She and Rick had split up, surprise, surprise, and she was struggling financially. She apologized for everything and asked if there was any way I could help her out. I was conflicted. Part of me was still angry, but another part remembered the times when she had been kind to me. After talking it over with my therapist and Mr. Thompson, I decided to offer Jenny an olive branch. I agreed to pay for her to attend a vocational training program so she could get back on her feet. It's not a blank check, and it comes with conditions, but it felt like the right thing to do. We're not close, but we're cautiously rebuilding some sort of relationship. As for Rick, he tried to contest the eviction in court, claiming he had verbal agreements with my dad about living in the house long term. Thanks to all the documentation we had, his case was quickly dismissed. Last I heard, he had moved to another state. Good riddance. 7. Unexpected challenges. It hasn't all been smooth sailing. About 3 months ago, a pipe burst in the basement, causing significant water damage. Dealing with insurance, contractors, and the repairs was a crash course in home ownership headaches. It was stressful and expensive, but I got through it. I've also had to navigate some tricky social situations. Some of my old friends started treating me differently when they found out about my inheritance. A few even tried to guilt me into lending them money. It's been a hard lesson in setting boundaries and recognizing true friendship. 8. Looking to the future. As I prepare to start college in the fall, I'm both excited and nervous. I'm looking forward to the academic challenges and the chance to meet new people. But I'm also anxious about balancing my studies with managing the house and my finances. I'm considering hiring a part-time property manager to help with the house while I'm away at school. I'm also thinking about my dad's legacy in real estate development. There might be an opportunity to intern with his old company during summers, which could give me valuable experience in sustainable development. Long term, I dream of using my inheritance and education to make a positive impact. I'm interested in affordable, environmentally friendly housing initiatives. It feels like a way to honor my dad's memory while also forging my own path. In conclusion, this past year has been a roller coaster of emotions and experiences. There have been moments when I felt completely overwhelmed and questioned every decision. But there have also been moments of pride, joy, and personal triumph. I'm not the same person I was when I first posted here. I've grown, learned, and changed in ways I never expected. I'm grateful for the opportunities I have, and I'm determined to make the most of them. To everyone who offered advice, support, and encouragement along the way, thank you. Your words meant more than you know, especially during those dark, confusing days right after the confrontation with Rick and Jenny. Life is unpredictable, and I'm sure there are more challenges ahead. But for now, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I'll always miss my dad, but I hope I'm becoming someone he would be proud of.